Hey there, this is Mia Hewett, and I'm so excited to go into this deep center of the earth conversation where we're going to talk about what it is like to go beyond knowing how to really, really live the self mastery of what you're really capable of. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. This is Everforward Radio.
3, 2, 1.
I grew up poor, Chase. So like I was always one of those kids that was like, why do those people have so much and we have so little? Like, but we're really good people. Like I couldn't understand like the whys of life. And it would drive me crazy. I drove my parents crazy, but I was always in the like, why? And then like some of the most traumatic experiences I had happened when I was a teenager. My parents divorced, and when we were really poor, my dog died because our house was so infested with fleas that they literally sucked the blood out of him. Like it, so
oh my gosh.
I remember at 13 going like, I don't know what, and I won't curse on your show. You don't want me to
put natural I won't filter anything, whatever you need to say.
Okay.
It's fine,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm like, this is, like, I remember thinking at 13 years old, I was like, holy shit, like I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do to like become wealthy, but I am not going to stay poor. Like I just knew I was not going to stay poor. And so I just became like obsessed with like, how do I make money? And so I went on and I co-owned and built a multi-million-dollar brick and mortar business, and for 24 years. So
what was
I did
that? What was the business before?
An insurance company, right? Because it's the safest. Like, people have to pay for this, right? Like I was like, I don't want to be poor again. And my clients would come in and they're like, you don't really fit insurance. Like you're in the wrong field. Like people would say this to me all the time because I was always like motivating them. And they're like, you should be a coach. And I'm like, what's a coach? Like I didn't really get that. Anyway, fast forward, I have all the houses, the cars, the properties, like, there really wasn't anything that I couldn't have. And I was still like, why do I feel so unfulfilled? Like, what is wrong with me? And my husband at the time would always say, you're just never happy. Nothing, you're just never happy. And like he was never happy. So I was like, I would just easily be like, well, it's you, you know what I mean? But it really wasn't. But I didn't know why I wasn't happy, but he wasn't happy either. Anyway, long story short, I go, okay, like I'm going to figure this out. I don't know why I'm miserable. I started like, I've ran like all the major marathons in the world, but I was smoking back then, like, because I was just like, I just wasn't in love with my life. And I couldn't put my finger on it. Like, what was I missing? And then I went on this rampage of, I spent like $500,000 in working with the best and the best in the industry. Like, just tell me what the fuck this is. Like, what am I missing? And I'm not saying that they weren't really well-meaning or that they don't like, we can only give someone what we have. Right. So, but what I found is what they would always tell me, well, just think differently. And I remember thinking, if I could fucking do that, I would have done that a long fucking time ago.
Yeah, like, isn't that the most obvious thing? Like, thanks, guy. Yeah, if I could do that, I would have done it by now. Yeah,
like it's not an intellectual issue. Like I was like, logically, I know I don't make fucking sense. But emotionally, it feels totally what I'm feeling. Like, so what gives if my mind tells me logically and my emotions feel this? How do I stop operating cross current within myself, right? But nobody could give me the answer. And I saw that on your thing that you read, that you talk about. You read Ryan Holiday's "The Ego Is the Enemy."
Oh,
I read
many
that book.
times. Ryan Holiday. He could write a book about a ham sandwich, and I would read it and buy
it. I know. I knew you were going to say that. But so you're going to really love what I found. Because what I found, because this is going to all start to really fucking make sense. So what I found, like the straw that broke the camel's back, I had paid this best-selling author, very famous in personal development world, paid him $50,000 to work with him. And I just kept bombing, like nothing was working. And I'm very coachable. So I was like, what do you think I'm missing? Like, where is it? And He was so frustrated with me. I remember him telling me, Mia, you just need to go in your room and not come out until you figure this out. And I remember, like, this is when the ghetto side of me comes out. I mean, I'm like, I can be really ghetto, right? I didn't grow up wealthy. So I'm like, I don't need to fucking, you fucking tell me, what I need to fucking do. I could have just gone in my room and done it. I was so pissed. But it was actually a blessing in disguise, right? Because
I'm hearing a lot of inner child come out of there. It's like some big authority figure telling you to go to your room. All of a sudden, it's just every past experience like that just comes out. Like, here we are in our rooms talking now. So I guess it all worked out.
It's so true. It's so true. It was really the best thing that could have ever happened to me in hindsight, because it was the day that I made the decision that I don't know what this is, that what I'm feeling, but I cannot be the anomaly. Like, I cannot be the only person who feels this way. And I just set out on this obsession, which I just became obsessed with. How does this really work? So here's what I found. I'm going to show it to you in a nutshell, because I wrote about it all in my book, but here's what I found that everybody doesn't get.
Oh, she came prepared. She's got the whiteboard and everything.
Well,
I love it.
I just got to show it
Incredible.
to you, because my mind works in images. And so, like, if I don't show it to you in an image, I don't feel like it really lands, right? But it's like, let's just say this, right?
People watching the video here, you're gonna be grateful you tuned in for the visual aid here.
Right? Like, this is the lifeline, right? You have a lifeline, right? And so let's say you're born, and when you're born, you completely, like, you trust yourself, you trust others, you trust, like you don't see any baby that has any kind of inner critic. You don't see any baby who doesn't believe in themselves or doesn't trust themselves, nothing like that. Everyone is born fully knowing they're good enough, they're worthy, they're deserving. And then what happens is, when we come on this journey, it will happen it's always under the age of 8. Most common is 4 and 5. Like, I see a lot of 4 and 5-year-olds. But what will happen is then you will hit a point where there's this emotional experience. Okay. It's not intellectual. This is what fucks people, is they think it's in the mind. Everybody's trying to coach through the mind, and it isn't in the mind. The mind just backs it up. So what happens is, there's an emotional trauma. So let's just say it happens at 4 for this thing. And what happens is, inside of that, it creates this open loop, if you will, right? A pattern that starts to run. And it can show up as something as simple as, and because people always think, I coach people from all different kinds of traumas, like the entrepreneurs. It can be something as big as somebody getting gang raped, watching their best friend like murder. The trauma didn't start before the gang rape, but this is what they'll have that will start here, that will become a gang rape. It makes total sense when I tell you the trauma of what she had and why that created that. It will all start to link. You can link it all back. What happens is, but it can be even as simple as people who grow up with the best parents, right? And there's a girl that I just had, and she's like top of her class, graduates valedictorian, and she completely struggles, like constantly doubts herself, always second guessing, always thinking somebody else has to tell her what to do. She wants to be an entrepreneur, top salesperson in anything that she does. She's always the best. But here's what happened. When she was between 4 and 5, she was so excited. Her mom told her the neighbor next door, the little girl moved in, and she was going to go next door to meet her. So excited. She had already imagined this girl's going to be her best friend. Right. And she goes down and she's so excited. And the little girl won't come out from hiding from behind the boxes, the moving boxes.
She's kind of shy.
And
yeah.
But at 4 to 5, whatever the age she was, my girl, right, who came to me, she made it mean, and here's where I'm talking about where it comes. She made it mean, she got really, really confused. Oh, people don't like me. She doesn't like me. Oh, I must not be likable. Oh, I'm not good enough for her. Other people are gonna not like me too. Oh, and the world now is a really fucking scary place, because before 4, she never thought the world was scary. It can be that simple, Chase, where it feels like it's not any big deal. And here's why everybody misses it. That's why I wrote it as a story in my book. I wrote the story so people can see it for themselves, where this trap is. Because what happens is when they try to look at it in the today's of my life, like that, this girl that just discovered that she's like 40 now. And so she's not going to make the connection between who she is today to 4 years old and this emotional behavior, right? So what happens, Chase, is when this emotional trauma happens, this is the day we created our ego. The day.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Of
wow.
Our ego. I'm going to show you how it's all connected, and that's how it all makes sense. So then what happens is she created her ego. And so then every experience after that is just going to be a deeper, bigger version, usually more traumatic, because until you close the loop. Until you stop, because, and then what happens is in the mind is just going to back up these things, right?
It's so the familiar, it's the known, it's everything that we've experienced that we know is true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it will keep saying, like, that's the inner critic, right? Which is your ego. The ego is your inner critic. Your ego is the one going like, oh, like it is because your ego, and the ego isn't bad.
Oh, I agree.
Here's where
I agree. Yeah.
The ego, we only create our ego because we created the ego. It's a lot like Chase. It's a lot like the movie Inception. Inception, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Inception is whereby an idea gets implanted into your mind and then you begin to believe it, forgetting you're the one who frickin' implanted the idea. It's freaking Inception, man. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, but what happens is what holds it in place is emotional. Okay. So the reason this is really important is why? Because all behaviors are emotional. They're not intellectual. They're not intellectual. So the reason people are reacting and resisting, all that is emotional. That comes from trauma.
Yeah. It's wild.
Right?
You're talking about, being around that age 4 or so. And this just came through a lot of personal work last year for me.
Yeah.
I became aware of this concept of inner child. I began to just kind of think back to really, long story short, I wanted to really fully understand my story as a human being. And so I went back as far as I could remember, like what was the very first conscious memory I had, or even just like a faint hint of a memory. And 30 years ago, at the age of about 4, between 4 and 5.
This is it. Yeah.
You get where I'm going.
Yes.
My very first kind of conscious thought popped in my head, and it was me. Like you, I grew up. I guess we were poor. I didn't know any better. I had a very great, happy childhood. So in my mind, I was never poor, but looking back, I was like, oh yeah, we definitely struggled a lot. Anyway, I grew up in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. We were living with my grandparents at the time, and I came down off of the mountain. I was kind of playing up in the woods, and I walked upon my mom and my dad. What I now know was a conversation that ultimately ended in them deciding to get a divorce. Yeah. And it was just very high emotion. It was very. It wasn't angry. It wasn't hurtful. It was just two people realizing just kind of where they were in life, and they weren't happy, and it was really no one's fault, but it was just like the few things that came to mind, like the sayings, the words were, what are we doing here? We're lost. We have no purpose, and we have no money. What we don't have. And then from that moment, then, my mom left and my sister went with her, and my brother and I stayed with our father and our grandparents for most of our life, and my stepmom. And, from that very, very beginning age, one of my very first memories, if not my very first conscious memory, was of what we don't have, and of like my family falling apart. And anybody who knows me would definitely say, well, that makes a lot of sense, because my entire life purpose now is trying to just take this family that kind of absolved and put us back together. My whole premise of Ever Forward came from my father. My whole meaning for life and why I get out of this bed here is, to honor that legacy, and just, to kind of pick up where I felt, that 4-year-old felt that, he kind of left off in a big way. It's really wild. And that was a true emotion. It's not just like, oh, I think this, but it was what feeling did I have that I'm now trying to make better as an adult.
100%, 100%. When this happens, we make 4 decisions. This is what I uncovered. We make 4 emotional decisions because you internalized what was happening with your mom and dad. You made it mean because, and I'll give you the reason why, so it really lands. The reason why is we don't have a conscious mind until after the age of 7. It starts to develop.
Yeah, like 3 to 7 is right when we're still literally being, it's all being built. It's all coming together up here in the brain. Yeah,
exactly. So you made it mean. Here's what you did, and see if you can. And if even if not right now, you can't recall it. You want to ask these questions to yourself. You made 3 decisions. You made the first decision when this happened. You made the first one about you. Because of this, I must be whatever it is. You made a decision about yourself. Because you internalized the reason for them divorcing was somehow your fault. You didn't look at it from the todays of your life and go, oh, look, mom and dad, they're just having like a hard time. They're sorting things out. It has nothing to do with me. Right. You made it mean I must be something. And then the second thing you made it mean is other people must be this, whatever that was. And then the last thing you decided is the world must be whatever it is. And it comes really fast. So it's 3 decisions you internalize. The reason we can see that is prior to this age, the world will be completely like your playground or fun and joy, right?
Yeah.
And then after that day, the world will become what? See, you will see
becomes the wild west of the uncertainty. Absolutely. Yeah.
This is it, right? So the world must be uncertain. So before this, you totally believed that life was certain. It was all for you. And then this created a completely open loop of a gap of how uncertain it is. So it will create this need to always try to feel certain, like everywhere and we become control freaks to try to get that need satisfied because it'll be
certainty and purpose and fulfillment.
Totally. In order to satisfy that insatiable need, because it's emotional, we will then, I was like, I would kill people off. Like I would, anything that didn't give me the answer that I needed, I'd be like, off with your head, right? Like the Walking Dead had nothing.
You're cut.
On me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're dead to me. I would just have a long list of dead bodies behind me.
We probably do. Most of us probably do. If we really think about it, we got really honest. A lot of dead bodies, meaning, dead relationships and
totally,
unfortunately.
Because we couldn't be with it, right? Because remember, this is why I'm saying, because when we made these 3 decisions, right? I must be whatever that X is, and other people must be this, and then the world is this. The reason we can justify killing everything off because we're trying to survive inside of our ego now, inside of this trauma pattern.
Would you say that right there is where when we probably have is that the first instance of awareness? I mean, as a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, you're not aware that is awareness, but just when this kind of make-believe world of you trust everybody, everything's good and happy, when that first instance happens, is that our subconscious first instance of awareness?
Totally, because wisdom is a result of awareness plus understanding, right? You didn't have understanding. So you had the first piece, which is awareness, like, whoa, I didn't even know something bad could happen in the world. Like you're going along, the whole world is for you. All of a sudden you hit that first emotional experience. And because we're not taught how to process the emotions, so it's not like the answer was, we'll just never have anything emotional happen to you. It's just that we're not taught how to process our emotions. So I want to link it because you're awesome in fitness and so forth. I want to link this to understanding, like, when we think of it as food, to food going in our bodies, we would never think about not being able to pee or poop because we would know we would literally create so many poisons and toxins in our body, we would die. But yet when it comes to emotions, energy, emotion, we don't know how to process emotion. And we're not taught that. I mean, like my parents never taught, they didn't know how to process emotion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think we're finally getting into like the 1 or 2 generations here of people being woke, were aware of these things. Yeah.
Exactly. They weren't awake. And so to that. And so that's exactly what was happening. And so since we didn't know how to process our emotion, what happens is we don't know what to do with the way we're feeling. And then to protect us, we create a false self, which is the ego identity. I must be, wow, like for that to have happened, I must be this or this must be. So now I'm going to hide. I'm going to be this false self so that this never happens to me again.
We build in a protective identity. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That's why people struggle with imposter syndrome, and because we're all an imposter in the ego. Every single one of us created an ego, right? Yeah. So who hasn't done that? And so it's just about now in the awakening. And to me, it's just really about awakening, because every single one of my clients, that's why I call myself the awakened entrepreneur, is because my clients would say to me when I would take them through this process and having them unravel it, they would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so awake, right? And so wisdom is the result of awareness, which is inside of having the awareness. So you can't heal something you're not even aware that is happening. So the first piece is awareness, but then you can't just stay aware, because what I see, and this was myself as well, right, is I had spent $500,000 on personal development. I was the most aware person, yet I still didn't feel any freer. So the second piece is you can't just have awareness. Awareness doesn't create results. Awareness does not create results.
So what does?
You have to go through the understanding. Like you have to be able to take that awareness, find where you created that, right? Have that awareness at that point, and then process the emotions that are stuck there so that you can sort it out. And then once you have awareness and understanding, now you're able to apply what would have you be free. And the three together, the combination of that, is what makes someone unstoppable, have wisdom, live from wisdom. Does that make sense? You have to go beyond knowing.
It does. Absolutely. I've said it before, and I give total credit to, it wasn't him, it was a guest on his show, but one of my good friends and podcast mentors, Josh Trent. He hosts the Wellness Force radio show. I'm pretty sure it's in his intro now. A guest of his said, knowing without doing is the same thing as not knowing. And that hit me hard when I first heard that. But I love this picture you're painting here. I imagine it being a journey to the center of the earth. And the journey to the center of the earth is really to ourselves, to our core, to our identity, to our ego, to just understanding who we are, how we operate, and really how to best move forward. Again, to kind of paint a picture here of, health and fitness. I would hope anyone listening, whether you do it for yourself or you're a coach or trainer for somebody else, we would never, I never did or still would never recommend just having someone completely change everything they do. You got to establish a baseline. You got to know what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you're eating, what you're not eating. And only from there can you, instill that sense of awareness and then kind of better understand, well, why do you do that? Okay, well, let's peel back the layers and understand why now. Well, that now probably started months, years ago. Journey to the center of the earth for yourself. This is where I think a lot of people get tripped up, and I would love to get your take on this. It's the reading, it's the podcasting, it's the self-development, it's the inner child, it's whatever the journey is for you to kind of go back to a root cause or the root cause or whatever first big thing pops up for you. Most people stop there. Most people think, okay, cool, I went back to my parents splitting up as a kid, and that solves all my problems. No, as much of the journey that you had to do in order to get there, like you now have to take that knowledge and get out. You not only do you have to go to the center of the earth, but you got to come back out. Can you walk us through like getting to that point, which I think we just did? Now we are a totally different person than when we began on this journey. How then do we come back to the present with this knowledge and awareness?
Absolutely. Because you said it really great when you were saying, like it's not enough to know, because experience is the true knowledge. Experience, like how do I live and breathe that, Mia? Not just like know about it, but how do I live and breathe it? And my methodology, I developed my own methodology. It's called aligned intelligence. And there's actually some steps right? So like,
We love
let me
steps.
show
This
you
is
what
going
I
to make for
mean.
great show
And
notes
this
here.
is,
I love it. Yeah. Very searchable.
yeah. No, these are exact steps,
Mm.
right? So I'm going to give you the exact steps of my process because it's the most important thing. This is what somebody could do to, no matter, whenever they get stopped, whenever they're triggered, they're stuck, they're struggling, right? Anytime that happens, this is what you need to do. The first thing is you're going to face what's stopping you. And the way I teach it, to really get it, to get present to this, is I actually want you to pull back. So like, as soon as you start feeling a negative emotion or feeling triggered, I want you to pull back and kind of like become a fly on the wall as an observer, right? And there is real reasons for this.
I love this analogy, not to interrupt you, but like this, you're really ringing true for, if you're familiar with Jocko Willink, do you know him at all? Jocko Willink. He's he's a Navy SEAL commander and one of my favorite authors now, as well as on top of Ryan Holiday. But he talks about this concept. Anybody here who listens to Jocko, just make this parallel right here. You got to detach. You got to detach from the operation, detach from the mission. Absolutely.
Totally. You have to. I mean, even inside of becoming a 6-7 figures, right, and 8 figures, you have to be able to see big picture, small details. See big picture, small details. So it's that ability to pull back. Right? Well, it also applies to pulling back from our identity. So when we pull back, what we're actually doing is letting go of our ego, right? Because the ego will keep it in the trap.
Yeah.
So the first step is what we want to do is pull back to gain awareness. And you just want to ask yourself a question. What am I making this mean? So the first step is face it, pull back. What am I making this mean? Because we automatically, that's the emotion, we're attaching a meaning to it. You will see that every single time we're triggered, it's literally going to come back to your original trauma. You're going to see it's all connected to the same pattern. It's not another pattern. Watch. So the second step, what you're going to do, number 2, is now, in order to really uncover it where it is, because you have to go deeper into that, down to the center of our earth. We're going to use your words. Right, I love that. You have to go deeper. So you're going to have to go deeper. So you need to, number 2, you got to separate the truth from the lie you've been telling yourself. Because the lie is what keeps the pattern or the ego running.
But most people don't recognize that. They don't understand. So how can we, can you walk us through how to recognize what is the lie and what is the truth we're telling ourselves?
Yeah. And so in the 8 weeks that I spend with people on the front end, what I do is, because I help them, I go back and show them, they're going to tell me exactly when it happened. They actually now see, in what I show them, they get to see their ego. So just like what you said earlier, you don't know, when working out, you don't know. It's that contrast that gives you the ability to be decisive. You don't know who you are until you know who you're not. So until I show people their ego, they don't have a reference of something else. So I actually show them their ego, and then I show them who they really are. They tell me, I'm not the one saying it. I'm just the one pulling it out of them to show them the 2 pieces so they can go, oh crap, that's who I really am. Oh, that's not who I am. So what happens is, on number 2, when we separate the truth from the lie, what's happening there is, every time we are triggered by something, it always contains a misconception, a misunderstanding, or a lie. So what we're going to do is we're going to just look lovingly at it. That's why we have to stay pulled back, because we're not going to judge it. We're not going to make it mean. We're just going to detach and look lovingly at it and go, okay, now you want on number 2, you want to ask yourself, what's the truth? What's the lie? So here's where we want to go inside of it, because you're going to see it's all attached to the trauma. So for if we used you for an example, you will
please,
if we use you, it'll be more practical, right? So tell me, if you can, what are the 3 decisions you made when you came up, and you're going to feel it emotionally. So here's how you're going to feel for that, right? So you were coming up, you said you were how old?
I was between 4 and 5, just going off the dates of when my parents split and stuff like that. I was between 4 and 5. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now here's what I want you to do. When you came upon that, just check in. It's not going to be in your head. So just feel for it. what did you make it mean about you when you heard them saying what you heard them say? What did you make it mean about you? I must be what?
That's a powerful question.
What's your first instinct? And you're going to feel for it. It's not in the mind. Feel for it.
Well, I just go to what I remember of, what are we doing? Why are we here? It was all about uncertainty. And, I thought everything was good. I thought, so I was a good son, a good brother. And if they were questioning that, the two figures in my life that I look to for everything, if they were questioning that, then I must be a contribution to that. So I must.
But you didn't go there first. You went to before the contribution. Then it's something inside of, I thought everything was good. So it kind of blindsided you. Do you know what I'm feeling?
Right. So I must be unaware to what's really going on in the world. Yeah, I must be.
This is it.
Yeah.
So this is it. So this will be a trigger for you. Anytime you feel that you don't know, you must be unaware of something, it's going to be like, how do I not know that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's always our trauma. Trust me. I know this. So we all every single person listening, and myself included, has them. So it's like, this happens to everybody. But we will make different decisions. So they won't be the same decisions.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why every trauma is not the same. It's subjective. Right. It's all based on their perception. That's why I can grow up in a household with 3 other girls of same parents, and we have totally different traumas. Right. Yeah. It's subjective. So, okay, I must be unaware of something. So now feel for it. Then other people, if you were blindsided like that, then other people must be what?
Then they must be aware. They must know what's going on, and they were keeping it from me. Yeah.
Yeah. You see that? So anytime you feel like they must know better, or they must have something that I don't know, or they're keeping it from me. Right. So it's going to be other people, like it's going to feel like they're not trustworthy. They know more.
Other people are keeping things from me. Yeah.
They're keeping it. Right.
Yeah.
That's what exactly. So they're keeping it from me. So these are going to be your triggers. Okay. Because you're going to recognize them. Then you can see your ego. You're going to start I go deeper in it, but I want to do it for time's sake, that I give you the three. But now the world must be what? So you said uncertain. So I must be unaware that, people are keeping things from me, and then the world must be uncertain. So now let's go back to these steps, right? So can you remember any time like where you were recently triggered, felt stuck or stopped? And I can actually show you how to actually process this through the aligned intelligence method.
Oh my goodness. This is incredible. Anybody who's been listening to my show for a while now, without going into full detail, there was a period of my life, right when I was telling you earlier in this episode, of when I read my first when Ego is the Enemy. That was my first self-help book ever. When I journaled for the first time, when I found a podcast for the first time. The 2 biggest things in my life popped up that were absolutely, I thought were certain, and they were the furthest thing from it. It was my professional career. When things were going on behind closed doors, I thought I was having conversations with my superiors and moving forward in a direction, and it was just simply not the case. In my personal relationship at the time, I mean, we're married now. Everything's good. But it was, I honestly didn't know if I was in a relationship or not. I didn't know if we were going to be staying together. And it just kind of happened overnight. All this certainty completely shattered. And there was so much uncertainty that other people had. I was uncertain. They were certain. And it was just all of a sudden overnight, like all these things were just like, oh my God, like, what do you mean all this is going on? Yeah.
Do you see how it's the same trauma?
Damn. How much do I owe you for this coaching session? It's incredible.
So now watch. This is how you're going to sort this out. Like, because the aligned intelligence method, what this will do for you is it's going to be able to help you process what's happening to you at a faster rate.
Okay,
so you don't get taken out. So you stop losing your power. So you stop being triggered. This is actually going to help you tremendously. So watch this. So pick one of those so you can just see that I can help you process that and how you will return to homeostasis inside yourself, inside your own alignment. So
let's go with the profession, because my relationship is very happy and certain right now. But being a self-employed, and I'm sure we could help out a lot of people with the professional side right now.
Okay, sure. Let's do that one. Okay, so now just to give us context. So what had you stopped? Just give us a little bit of that. What did they say, or what was said to you that had you stop? Just give us a little context for it.
Sure. I was working on a big project, but multiple projects to not only move forward individually in my position, my my military's coming out here, my rank and my grade, but my pay and my management ability, my ability to move forward, as well as it was me, my department, my team of other coaches, and then the company, because I had a great vision of what I wanted to accomplish. I had a great vision of what I wanted to help my team accomplish, and that all painted a bigger picture for the entire company. And that was polar opposite of what wound up happening with the rest of them.
Because what did they say? So what was the trigger? Just give us the trigger.
It was, having conversations of, yes, we like this idea. We're going to move forward. It was, it was agreeance. It was, yes, this is good. Yes, this is good. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. And then literally I came back after my honeymoon and the complete opposite happened. Yep.
There comes the blind side. Okay. So now feel for it. What did you make that blind side mean? When you were blindsided, what did you make it mean? That
they didn't trust me, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't going to be able to be the one to take it forward. And that, I questioned everything professionally that I was bringing to the table.
That's exactly it. So see, there we go. I'm not good enough, which is what happened which
I already know is my limiting belief. That was the very first thing when I got when I hired my first official coach and mentor years ago. Totally. That was the limiting belief that we worked through, and it was transformational, and it still is again today here.
Totally. So that's going to be the trigger, right? So I must be unaware. I must not be good enough, or my parents wouldn't split. Right. So that's what you were making it mean. Now go to step 2. Now separate the truth from the lie. Let's clear the misunderstanding. What's the truth that you're not good enough, or that, like inside of what you made that mean? What's the real truth and what's the lie?
The truth is that if I'm thinking back to that instance, was too trusting of way too many other people. That I either, I hate to say shouldn't have been, but just should have been, more cautious of, or just had a better checks and balances, especially in the professional environment of what are we working on? How's it moving forward? Are we all on board here kind of thing, instead of just like, yeah, cool. And then everything changes.
I want to go deeper with that for you, because it's, you want to take it down into more of a practical. I'm going to say not that you were too, on the surface awareness, it'll feel like you were too trusting, but really on a deeper level, I want you to feel this. You just didn't get it in writing.
Oh, well, yes, technically. Absolutely. Yeah. That's really what happened.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I just want to make sure, because it's not that we don't want to stop at of not trusting people, because that will create a whole other patterns of people not being trustworthy in your life. What we want to do is go pinpoint and go, oh, wait a minute. It's because I just believed what they said, which is true. You're a really great guy, and you do believe, because you mean what you say, and you say what you mean. So you want everybody else to live by the same.
I pass my own expectations on to others in those scenarios.
100%. We all do that. Yeah. But here's where I want to help you with that, because it's not that you need to stop trusting people, because that's your 4 to 5 year old talking. That's your ego. What I want you to, to see is it's just a matter of you saying, okay, you want to really not focus on what they're saying. You want to watch their behaviors. Did they put an agreement together, and have you signed? If not, then what they're saying means nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now let's separate. So separate the lie from the truth. So the lie from the truth about, are you not good enough? And that, about other people. So what's the lie? What's the truth? What are you getting now from that same experience? What's the lie? What's the truth?
That's kind of difficult. I'm unsure. The lie would be that everyone is on the same page as me, and the truth is that everyone's not. And so the truth is that I need to not pass my expectations on, and I need to not just have high standards of other people, but I need to kind of better understand them, so that I hate to say meet them at their level, but I need to understand how other people operate, and I need to get better at telling them how I operate, so that there's less assumptions and less unmet expectations, and so that we're both operating and meeting out of authenticity in who we are, and then there's no uncertainty once we actually finally do come together.
Freaking awesome, Chase. Like, that's the gift that gave you. Right? That gave you that gift that you, like, inside of you really, instead of assuming you're on the same page just because they're saying what you want to hear, really uncovering what is it that what's really behind it.
Which, by the
yeah,
I was just going to say, to kind of paint a picture to the other example I gave of the relationship. We're talking about professional expectations here and intimate ones, personal relationships.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that really helped a lot during that time of my life was we both kind of read at the same time and went through the 5 love languages. And what is that all about? Better understanding how you give love, receive love, and communicate, and to stop passing that expectation onto the other person. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, because everything's subjective.
Yeah.
And it's all based, Chase, on our original trauma. So it's not that it's like a zillion million things we have to figure out. If you knew your significant other's trauma, you would know everything about her for the rest of your life.
I do now. Yeah. I do now. Yeah.
Right. Right. Because once you know this and the decisions that we make, now everything that triggers or becomes a stopping point or that they care about will be inside of really this. Yeah. Right. It's always going to come back to this. So this is perfect. Like, I love everything you're saying. So now in step 2, once we separate the truth from the lie, which you beautifully gave us a real practical way of like seeing how that really happens, what do you have to let go of before we get to, step 3, to make sure we're really free of the negative emotion that's been trapped there? We have to let go of something. And how we know we're there is we will get to a feeling of neutrality. There won't be any resistance or anything we're holding on energetically anymore. So what would you say, and holding that same context about the job, and like now that you saw the truth and what was the lie, what would you have to let go of to have completely get the gift out of it and like free yourself to a neutral state? What would that be for you?
Well, the kind of the thing that just came to mind was needing to really just truly accept that just because something is doesn't mean it always will be. And that's not a good or a bad thing, but I mean, and kind of just taking this example and going back to so many other relationships in my life, intimate relationships and, interpersonal ones, the hurt that happened the most came from when, like, what do you mean we're not friends anymore? Like, why don't you, why did we break up? Why are we not hanging out as much? It's because I realize that if I have this certainty, if I have this relationship, I just expect it to always be there. And so I need to let go of the fact that just because something is, that it doesn't mean it always will be. And that's not a bad thing sometimes.
Yes. So inside of when you made it mean at the 4 to 5 that I must be unaware, this is where you keep beating yourself up, because that's still the 4 to 5-year-old feeling, right? Like somehow you would need to always be aware, or that just because someone says something, it's like that forever, meaning that whole feeling of being blindsided. And you're 100% accurate when you just said because the truth is life is not stagnant. It looks like there's this thing called time, but it actually isn't. Like, and I know you know this, but it's like literally like, even when an earthquake sets off a wave, like where it starts to go, it looks like the wave is really moving inside of it, but actually it's the energy above. The water underneath is actually, stagnant, but the energy that's moving through it. So why I say this is just like alignment is it's not a one and done. I really think we get this from school. It could be somewhere else, but my opinion, this is just an opinion because I don't know if that's really true. But my opinion is it feels like we get it from school, where we think like we go to elementary school and then we're done. And then we go to middle and then we're done. And then we go to high school and then we're done. So there's this feeling like we're supposed to get somewhere and then we're done. And why I'm saying this is just like success is not a one and done. There's no finish line to cross. So is your alignment. It's not a one and done. It's a lifestyle to be lived. Success is a lifestyle, man. Like I've been an entrepreneur 31 years and it's a lifestyle. It's not a like, I hope I get here and then I'm done. And then it's not like that, right?
I'll be happy when, I'll be successful when. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love what you're getting here because this is beautiful. This is going to help so many people that even in relationships or inside of the business relationships or our love, our personal relationships like this, that it's not a one and done. Success is not about, getting the ring or getting the girl, but more about the practice of the living, breathing of alignment in that relationship, the living, breathing of alignment in that job or in that career, or in, if you're the owner, in what you're creating. It's always a living, breathing. I think Michael Jordan said it best when he said, I remember this great interview he did with Tony Robbins, and he said, Tony asked him, Michael, you're like the best of the best, man. Like, how did you do it? How'd you do that? And he said, well, Tony, most people don't understand this, but you're going to get this. I know you will. But most people were competing against me. But I was only ever competing against myself. And what I love about that is, like, self-mastery has no finish line. We're never going to get it done.
Please say that again. Please say that again.
Yeah. Self-mastery has no finish line. We're never going to get it done. There's always a more, and then a more, and then a more. The evolution of who we are, like evolving, how we constantly evolve into more. As soon as we find our edge, and break through that edge, there's another edge, and then break through that, and there's another. So it's not oh my God, there's something wrong with me, so I have to get somewhere to prove I'm good enough. Like, that's what happened to me. That's what I thought was going to arrive when I made millions.
Like we were saying earlier, that journey to the center of the earth, journey to the center of the self. Like, we put all of our eggs and all of our intention and all of our ideas and expectations in, I just got to get to that destination. I got to get to that thing, and that's going to solve all my problems. But no, then you become a completely different person. You become aware, really, of the entire journey you just made. And then you realize, all right, cool. Now I get the rest of my life to go back out. I've gone to the center, and now I'm climbing my way back out, and then into the atmosphere and beyond. It really never ends. Yeah.
Totally. It just never is. There's always more. There's always more. There's always the becoming of more. The key that I think people are looking for, this is where the truth of where I found it, is where I don't live in, then there's something wrong. The key is where I'm always looking at the deliciousness of what is, as I'm eagerly anticipating what's next. So I'm never really one or the other. Like, I don't live in goals. I live inside of a vision of what I'm creating, but I'm living it now. And so I'm not living into a goal out there. I'm living into a vision that is going to then manifest itself through myself, internalizing it in the living and breathing of it now. I didn't become a 7-figure entrepreneur until I literally felt what it would feel like before I ever created it. I didn't run the 7 major marathons in the world until I already knew what it felt like before I ran them. Like, we think that it's happening on the outside in, but everything's happening from inside out.
Yeah. I love that. I love that part. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I love what you got here. So, like, inside of separating the truth from the lie, letting go, what did you have to get to then to get to neutrality? If you can bring it back for us, like what that was for you, again, it will help go into now number 3. Do you remember, like, what you said? Because you said something really beautiful inside of it. What'd you get?
Needing to kind of just realize that, letting go of, or if not, setting clear expectations from the beginning, and understanding that just, because this is how I perceive how we're going to move forward and what truth is, that is just me. And even though I may think it's good and right, it doesn't matter what I think. So it needs to be that clear understanding on both sides. Yeah.
Totally. So I love that. I hear it as letting go that my perception is the only way, that everybody's living in their own perception, which is brilliant. What you just said is brilliant. 100% spot on. That will keep you always being able to see what their perception is, so that you see what is really being put together and not what you think it is. So you'll stop being blindsided. That's awesome. So number 3 is, then once you've done that, number 3 is now locate, to get to the root, notice that what you had made it mean, how it was linked to your core trauma, right? So it's just kind of like getting it to see, like, oh, interesting. Look, here's my pattern. And of course that would trigger that, because that's my pattern from 4, right? So then when we can see, oh yeah, this is my core trauma. Then inside of that, the acceptance of the truth of that, like, meaning, if we can take on that nothing we're experiencing is being caused by anything outside of ourselves, if we can just entertain that, right? What power does that give you inside of that context of that job?
That I really am driving the ship in everything. We,
Freaking
I
awesome.
being we.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now step 4, we're going to apply that truth by going all in, right? How, like, now take that and go all in with it. If I'm really creating it all, right, inside of, like, I'm really driving the ship, even when I'm not, I didn't know I was, based on this trauma, I'm still driving it. Now, how do you want to feel? So now you get to choose deliberately, like on purpose, and tell and command your mind as a tool that it was actually designed for, not as a servant, like not as the master, but the servant.
Yeah.
You want to command your mind and now tell it, how you want to feel, and then feel it. What would be now? How do you want to feel about that experience? So we're just literally processing that emotional feeling about that situation. How do you want to feel now that you've seen the truth of it all? How do you want to leave that experience? What's the gift in it?
That I do want to feel certainty. That I do want to feel like my expectations can be upheld, but it's only through me. My expectations I can have these expectations of the world, of how I want to interact, of my business, of my relationship. But the only way that is going to hold its weight is if I honor that. And I recognize that is my standard, that is my expectation. And the only person that needs to uphold that is me. And then therefore anybody else that doesn't, well, it doesn't matter, because that was never, the expectation from the beginning.
Totally. And it just leaves you being able to then, like, again, as you hold that, but then check for their perception of reality, so that you make sure you're both on the same page, and then get the agreement in writing.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, process it all the way through. The last and final step would be 5, is then from that feeling of, like, what it is that you really do want. What's the truth now that you see that? And then how do you want to feel? Now, what's the next action step, right? We're going to take action, right? What's the action that you see that you need to take? Which is exactly what you just said. We're just going to get it into an agreement. And then, but still allowing us full expectation of it being in the receiving mode. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not about, like, letting go and being like, oh, I've got to just not trust people and this. No, you get to be the master of your destiny. In order to be the master of your destiny, you can't, if I'm sailing a ship, I can't make all the waves wrong for hitting up against me in certain ways, right? If I'm Michael Jordan, I'm not going to be Michael Jordan and go, well, defense, you can't play like that, or I can't be Michael Jordan, right? So what we have to accept inside of that is you can be the master of your own destiny, and you will have to, in order to do that, you will have to make sure that the people playing with you, you have to get what their perception is, knowing that they are in a perception. When you know that, then you don't make it mean anything, because everybody has already created their own perception based on their original trauma. Right? You don't make it mean anything. Now you're free to play the game the way the game is supposed to be played, right? But not being caught off guard and blindsided.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been incredible.
Yay.
And all the things you're talking about, I mean, if I could sum up all of this, this has been incredible. And if you've been listening, you definitely want to make sure to catch the video, because we had some incredible visual aids here. It's something that I talk about all the time. And, anybody picks up any self-help book, most likely you'll hear, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the process over the prize. And really, if I just had a blanket statement, this whole conversation, I would say that's it. It's the journey. Where you're going often takes you places you never thought you would. And then when you get there, you realize, oh no, this is just another checkpoint. This is just another checkpoint. This is another checkpoint. And we could get off on a whole other episode on, how that can be, that is kind of overwhelming when you really think about it, of like, okay, well then am I ever going to be good enough? Am I ever going to make progress? And yes, every time you do, like, you're becoming a better version of yourself. You're moving forward in life. You're moving, ever forward is what we're all about here. So I'm curious, Mia, what does that mean to you? How would you say that you live a life ever forward?
So I love that. So for me, once we know who our ego is, and then we get to see who we really are, and we really have those characteristics. It's not just a concept. We really have it as an emotional set point is the most important piece. We no longer feel not good enough. Like that stops running. In fact, to the point where like, I don't have a voice. I don't have an inner critic that runs. I used to. And I know how to bridge, like, you know, even my people who are just learning and they healed this, how they're like, I know where they are in the journey of like before the voice stops. But what happens is, and isn't it awesome? I just have to say, isn't it awesome? We don't have to go sit in a Buddhist monastery for like months. And I've had people who've come to me who said, I've done this for, you know, like you're teaching me how to not live for my ego. And I've spent, you know, months and months and months in silence trying not to. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of real practical. I think like when you build a, you know, a successful business, I can't sit there and think about how I would sit there in silence for so long. Anyway, that's my own personality but coming out. But, you know, it does really shift internally, because what happens is, this is what it feels like to go from surviving to thriving. Is like, it really feels like I was operating this way in my ego, trying to survive my trauma, which I didn't even know it was attached to my original trauma that happened at 5. And so everything was going this way. And then when I stopped that running and I really cleared the emotions that were really keeping it in place to run that pattern, what happened is then when I got to see who I really was, because if I'm not this, then who the hell am I, right? Like that's what everybody gets to a point. They're like, but if I'm not that, Mia, who am I? And I'm like, cool, let me show you.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
You get to build it. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the direct opposite of this, because you were who you really are is who you were before 5. That's who you really are. And then I get to show you, I can ask them the questions and they'll actually have who they really are.
Wow.
And not as just an awareness, but then now their job is to internalize it and have it as an understanding and an emotional set point. Now, from that way of being, it's easy to take actions from the way that it would feel in alignment, because alignment is the answer. So to answer your question, I feel like the ever forward is me living in alignment with myself as a practice, though, not as a one and done, like as a practice, like the next, you know, anytime I want whatever I'm wanting next and I'm internalizing that vision, it's going to at first feel like, oh, I don't know this yet. Let me find where the feeling place is. But then my job is to find the feeling place, you know, fairly quickly, and then begin to operate from that way of being. So all of my decisions are coming from already being that way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
The reason why people get taken out in business is because they're making ineffective decisions consistently from ego. When we can live in alignment with who we really are, and then we take actions, right? So alignment first and then action. Alignment first and then action. Alignment first and then action. When we can live from that as a natural way of being, I don't teach meditation. People are always like, you know, I said, you know, I'm really practical. I know I can sound like I'm not, because I go into this, but I'm really, at the end of the day, this is just because I just wanted the freaking truth. Just tell me the freaking truth and let me go practice it, right?
Just tell me what to do, coach. Just tell me what to do.
Just tell me what to do, man. I'm so coachable.
That's the truth. Well, I'm of course going to have all of your information down in the show notes. It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Incredible, you know, coaching session, really. So anybody who's wondering how to get in touch with you, where can they go? Where can they click right now?
I want to give them something free.
Oh, thank you.
Giving, you know, just for your guests. So my book is Meant for More. It's literally called Meant for More: How to Stop Secretly Struggling and Become a Force to Be Reckoned With.
I love that cover, by the way. It's beautiful.
Free. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's all in story format so that they can absorb it easily for themselves and then dissect. I'm going to show them how to find all of it, see their ego and their aligned self, everything. So they can go to miameantformorebook.com, and all they have to do is put in the password free book.
Okay.
And they'll get it for free. They don't have to buy it or anything. It's the only place it's available for free. miameantformorebook.com. Or they can always just go over to Mia Hewett and HEWETT.com on my website, and they'll be able to like contact me if they have any questions. I'm the one always talking. Like my team doesn't do any of the commenting. So I really am the person. People are always shocked. Like when they come on a call with me, they're like, it's you. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
They're always shocked. They think I have other people doing those conversations, but I feel like, hey, if you want to uncover what's really missing, you really want to talk to the person who's going to help you do that. Because if you don't jive with them, it's not really going to work as well as if you know who you're, getting in bed with, so to speak.
Very true. Yeah, exactly. It's got to have some kind of trust there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I just so loved hanging out with you, Chase.
Likewise. My pleasure. My honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're such a cool guy. And I just really love what you're up to, your passion, your purpose, your dedication to helping people. It's so honorable. And I really, I acknowledge you for the work you're doing in the world. Thank you for being you.
I received that. Thank you so much. And I give it all to, really, this would be, well, I hate to say meaningless, but it wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for the viewer, the listener, the audience member. This platform truly stemmed out of all that stuff we were talking about years ago, of when I became curious and I had this kind of internal itch that kind of just happened. And the more I began to scratch it and began to learn and get to the root cause and just realize that, wow, there's a whole other world out there, but also a whole other world in here, in the head and the heart, that I just want to get to know. And this platform was it for me, and connecting with incredible people like you. And just it's wild that this is life now. We just live in a day and age where we can connect and learn and help each other, and now help millions of other people at the same time. It's incredible.
It's like it fulfills a promise I gave to God when my dog died when I was 13. And I remember saying, like, I don't know what this is, but when I find out, I'm going to give it to the world. And I feel like I just feel like I get to give back and be the word that I told God. So thank you so much. It's been awesome.